The Road to Healing as a social media platform that we created to raise awareness for sexual violence and sexual abuse survivors. I know for myself, when I share my story, it helps me heal because I see the inspiration in other people, and I also see that's giving them permission to do the same. I feel truly blessed that I have this purpose, this passion, and this drive to continue to try and help other people and to try and bring this into the light, to literally heal out loud so others don't suffer in silence. My story is a story of childhood trauma. I'm a survivor, or I was a victim of sexual assault from the age of 9 to 13. I'm a recovering addict. I've survived suicide. Yeah, I've really battled. My life experiences are literally a superpower now, bro. I've walked in all those shoes. I'm QBL, bro. I'm qualified by life. And I guess that's why I share my stories, because I know it's the same as a lot of other people. We're currently walking from Cape Reinga to the Beehive, running a petition for minimum mandatory sentences for sexual offenders of 8 years, starting point. We're out active doing something that seems crazy or impossible or extremely difficult. It attracts the attention. I've already walked the whole country unassisted. 2023 we walked from Mount Hikurangi on the east coast to Mount Taranaki on the west coast. Last year in April we cycled 2,000 kilometres around the South Island. It's on another level, bro. You know, you hear people talk about like a journey or a pilgrimage. Like, it's hard to describe because it's that special. So we're up early, we're up before the sun comes up, obviously. You know, most days are around that 50K mark, so we need sort of 10 hours of walking to get that done. And we'll get up, coffee, we strap the feet, put the blister plasters on, put the shoes on, fill up the camel pack, make sure the phone's at 100%, you know, check in with T and Cowboy, the team members, make sure they're all good, check the route, and then get going. This morning, for instance, I walked past the dude's driveway, he's putting his bin out. I said, "Morning, mate, nice day." He says, "Yeah, morning. Where are you walking to?" I said, "Oh, Wellington." "Where are you walking from?" I said, "Cape Reinga." Why are you walking? And I said, for awareness around the epidemic of sexual abuse in New Zealand. And he said, "Wow, okay." And I said, "I'm running a petition asking for minimum mandatory sentences of 8 years imprisonment for sexual offenders to address the seriousness of their crimes and the impacts on the wider community that they cause." And he said, "Wow, what are the statistics?" And I explained the statistics to him, and he was gobsmacked. He had no idea. And he shakes my hand. He goes, "Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate what you're doing, mate. You know, I wish you all the best." One of the coolest things is that the people, bro, the people you connect with, and the me too, the yup, my brother, my sister, myself, my mother, my father, my auntie, my uncle, my son, my daughter. It would literally be 9 out of 10 people have that, start with that line. Holding space for people to share their experiences and their stories, and sort of trying to open people's eyes up in a drastic way through those events. These can be secrets that people have held on to for decades, and the healing begins when we can start speaking about it. The statistics for sexual abuse in New Zealand is 1 in 3 girls by the age of 16 and 1 in 6 boys by the age of 16. And when you reverse that against our population in the 2018 census, to reach that rate by the age of 16, girls are being sexually abused or sexually assaulted at a rate of 1 per hour, and boys are being sexually abused or sexually assaulted at a rate of 1 every other hour. So that's 24 girls a day, and 12 boys a day will be sexually abused for the first time, because usually it doesn't just happen once. 23% of our adult population have been sexually abused in their lifetime. So we are 4th in the OECD. So as far as offenders go, it's between 80 to 90% are either family members or known to the victim. So we're talking aunties, uncles, mums, dads, cousins, and the saddest one is siblings. And I've heard so many stories of siblings, and step siblings as well, blended families. because there's no boundaries, because this conversation isn't happening, because the parents aren't aware that this is what happens and the impacts of it when it does happen, they're not having these awkward conversations with their kids, and then it's all too late and they're trying to fix it instead of prevent it. You know, I've lost count of the amount of men and women that we've quite literally saved. I take crisis calls on the regular. You know, I go and meet with people. You know, the inbox is loaded. You know, the amount of people that need to see someone doing something like this and speaking about it out loud, without shame, without guilt. What keeps me going, I guess, is that fact that I've turned this huge negative and this huge ugly thing into this almost like a superpower, where I can shine that light into the darkness for other people. You know, there's a saying that I really like, and that's that we heal out loud so others don't suffer in silence. The importance of sharing our stories, it gives us the opportunity to get whatever's inside out, for one, you know, to verbalize it, and it really invites other people and gives other people permission to be vulnerable and to dig deep and sort of let out whatever they're holding on to. It helps us understand the why when we look back at each other's lives or what we've been through. It puts some context to why we did or why we didn't do things, why we did do things, or the paths that we may have chosen, the way we handled situations. These can be skeletons in people's closets. This can be, you know, these can be people's biggest insecurities, their biggest worry, the biggest, you know, burden that they carry. It's almost a sort of owning your shit as well, and standing up and going, yeah, this is what happened, or this is what I did, or whatever that may be. And I think there's a huge healing in that, huge healing. So my story is a story of childhood trauma. I'm a survivor, or I was a victim of sexual assault from the age of 9 to 13 by someone who worked with my father, and the levels of that abuse were quite intensive for quite a long period of time, which made me a very angry, confused, violent young man. I was out of control. I ended up in SIFS care, so a ward of the state, where I was actually abused further by the government or by the state, physically and mentally and emotionally, which led me a direct gateway into the prison system and addiction, drug use, violence, and it took a long time to sort of move on from that. I'm a recovering addict. I've survived suicide. Yeah, I've really battled. That's why I share my story, is because I know it's the same as a lot of other people. Anger, shame, guilt, worthlessness. Shame's probably one of the biggest, especially being a male, and my perpetrator obviously being a male. Shame of letting it happen, and not having a voice, not being able to have a voice. My response was to freeze or to fawn. I would freeze, or I would try and get along and make it a okay situation, so that maybe the abuse wouldn't happen on that occasion or that visit. Yeah, but a lot of anger, a lot of confusion, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. So my message of hope is real simple, man, and that's if I can turn my life around and change my life and heal and let go of the old Sam and embrace little Sam and move forward as a constructive and positive member of society, then anybody can. You know what I mean? Like, anybody can do it. You know, I was a methamphetamine addict for 15 years. I've been to prison 6 times. I've been to 4 different boys' homes. You know, I spent more time in prison between the age of 16 and 22 than out of prison. I had my 21st in prison, my 18th, my 16th was in the boys' homes. You know, like, if I can turn my life around, anyone can. And it just takes a little bit of effort, a little bit of energy, and a little bit of support, and it can be done, you know, it honestly can be done. You know, and there's so many good people out there that are willing to join you on that journey and help you on that journey and guide you along that journey. As soon as you're ready to say, I'm fucking over this, then it's, you know, every day after that is amazing. So my big achievement, was probably my biggest achievement, is doing something that my children can be proud of. Is my biggest achievement. Yeah, that's, you know, sort of righting all of the wrongs that I've done as a father. You know, for my kids to know that I'm out here doing this stuff to help other children that were just like me. There needs to be serious consequences for the seriousness of the offending. It needs to reflect the impact it has on the victim, the rest of the victim's life. We live with it forever. We live with it forever. We talked earlier about regrets and stuff like that, you know, like aside of my deepest regrets with my parenting and stuff like that, like I have no education because of what happened to me. You know, I have criminal convictions that I can never get overturned. You know what I mean? I have all of these things. They were robbed from me, you know what I mean? And that offender got to continue on living his merry life and offending, and he went on to abuse a lot more children. If someone is murdered, you know that they're gone, and you can grieve for that loss, and you can understand it, and the family can try and move forward. Although they'll never be the same, they can move forward. But you've got this family member who's dead walking amongst you, who's going through addiction, who's going through dysfunctional lifestyle choices. You know, they may be in gangs, they may be going to prison, they might be projecting their trauma by domestic violence on their partner. All of these things, the impact is so widespread. The ripples just keep flowing out and out and out and out. There needs to be some serious accountability to deter this kind of offending. If someone has these urges, they need to know, just through their social media or through the news, that if they act out on these urges, they're going to get a serious sentence of imprisonment, and that their time in prison is not going to be enjoyable. If we can lock drug dealers or drug importers up for 14 years, and I know that the amount of harm that drugs do, why can't we lock these sexual offenders up? Because that's why these people are buying the drugs. If I was to put programs in place, it would definitely be around body safety and awareness for children, and it would start at a young age. It'd be schools, it'd be lived experience or qualified by life speakers coming into schools and telling their stories. Definitely want to get programs into boys' homes, into youth facilities, and see a lot more healing approach, restorative as opposed to punitive. If they can realise that there's such an epidemic of sexual abuse in New Zealand, if they can realise that, understand that, and then equip themselves with the right tools, which isn't hard either, and have those hard conversations, which aren't hard conversations. They're awkward, but if you start young enough with the kids, there's nothing awkward about them at all. The conversation is about keeping yourself safe and that your body is special, that no matter who the adult is, you're in control of your body. You have the right to say no. If you don't feel safe, follow those instincts, tell a trusted adult, all of those things, you know. That's the message, that's the importance, is all about letting your child know what is okay and what's not okay, and that if something is not okay, that it's safe for them to come and tell you that. Whether or not it's already happened, it's about to happen, whatever. It was, 15, 20 years ago, where as a country we didn't talk about suicide, and we said we've got this huge problem with suicide. Now everyone's aware that suicide's happening, and it's happening at quite a high rate for our capita. Well, let's dive a bit deeper and understand why people are doing that, and let's talk about that. And it's childhood trauma. That's the bulk of it, that's the biggest chunk. You know, we're talking about mental health, and we have a minister for mental health. Well, can we not just frame it up like that? Can we actually look at and decide, okay, well, what's the biggest leading cause in this? What's the biggest leading cause in addiction? You know, like I see currently in the news, they're saying that there's a meth epidemic in the north, up in the far north, and people don't just grow up to want to be a meth addict. There's reasons why, and I've spoken to lead facilitators from rehabilitation services that have been in the game for 12, 15 years, and one lady in particular who also has started her own charity, making huge moves all across the country. And she says it's about 90% of the people coming through rehab have been sexually abused. You know, so I would like to see the elephant outed. Let's call it what it is. I mean, our government don't even want to say sexual abuse. They want to call it family harm. They did call it family violence, and they've now changed it to family harm. It's not family harm, it's sexual abuse, it's rape, it's sexual assault, it's all of those ugly words, but we need to use those words. and we need to be run it up the guts, because it ain't working what we're doing. Ignoring it ain't working. You know, and if we carry on the way we are, we're gonna be on the podium for the wrong reasons. You know, we're 4th in the OECD, and that's, you know, 23% of our adult population. That's 1 in 4. It's unacceptable in a country like New Zealand, but yet we're not doing anything about it. So I mean, a mainstream media campaign would be endgame, really. Helping's real simple. Sign the petition, follow the page, support, like, interact, comment, share. But if you put all of that aside, the most help is to make themselves aware, get their hands on some resources if they're parents, and start talking to their children. Create the change within their household, and that's going to have a domino effect as well. You know, it's a privilege every day to hold space for people. I feel like I'm giving back. I feel like I'm a proactive and productive member of society. I feel like I have purpose, and I think a lot, trauma aside and backstory aside, I think something that a lot of people do lack in their lives is purpose, and I feel truly blessed that I have this purpose, this passion, and this drive to continue to try and help other people and to try and bring this into the light, to literally heal out loud so others don't suffer in silence.